A few years ago, I was at a friend's house during the holidays. We were hanging out in the living room, and he had a relative over. We were chatting, and this relative had grown up in the faith, but had fallen away from faith in Jesus. They had rejected the faith of their childhood. They had gotten older and wiser. They were waxing philosophical about life. They were saying, "Look, there's so much out there. We can't possibly claim to know God." He said, even if you say there is a God out there, we are like tiny little ants in the backyard, walking around, scurrying around. Do they know that the owner of the house is walking by, or do they just say there's thunder when the ground trembles and shakes? He says it's like that. We would never, ever know. If there was a real God out there, it's ridiculous to imagine that we would. Have you seen the pictures of the cosmos? Have you seen the photos of outer space from satellites? Even the Earth looks like a tiny marble, and then we on the Earth are like infinitesimal specks. And some of that is true. We are tiny compared to the size of the Earth, and the Earth is tiny compared to the size of the cosmos. And unlike hundreds of years ago, we know we are not the center of the universe. So what makes us think we could know the living God if there is one? Well, I think about this verse from John chapter 1, verse 14. It says, "And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory. Glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth." This Christmas season, one of the marvels that we consider is the mystery of incarnation. The Spirit of the living God, the infinite, all-powerful, all-knowing, uncontainable, awesome God. God himself, limiting himself to the flesh. If you're an ant scurrying around in the backyard, you would never know the owner of the house unless somehow the owner of the house had unbelievable power, creative power, even power to create himself in ant form. Like what if the owner of the house shrunk all the way down to that tiniest form and walked among the creatures that lived in the backyard? That would be a different story entirely. And that is the story of the incarnation. We're not imagining that we can somehow comprehend God. In fact, the scriptures are really clear that we cannot wrap our heads around this God. But this God wrapped flesh around himself. I've seen the pictures of my children when they were growing in the womb. And I've seen the charts. I've looked all the way back, and the reality is that a baby in the womb begins as a single cell that duplicates and then duplicates again and again. And pretty soon you have this child in the fetal stage, and we can begin to track the heartbeat. We can track brain development. We can see their fingers and toes developing. We can see all of their internal organs, and pretty soon all of those things that are needed for functioning for life exist in the womb right there. The infinite God became flesh. I think that means he constrained himself all the way down to a single cell. Why? And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory. That's why, because we could never have seen him. We could never have responded to him. And all of the clues, all of the invitations that God gave his people in the days before Jesus, they just were so big, they were impossible to receive. but we can receive Jesus because he came as one of us, God himself in the flesh. And so that's what I'm meditating on today.